Well, you've had 3 weeks now.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Could have changed your mind.
I could have.
He did not, though. G did not change his mind. G, you're up first.
All right, here we go. Where are we looking at? Yeah. So, listen, we got to get to this, man. We looking at it. So, we'll take the passing game. Now, C+. Now, people might be mad at my C+ here. Now, let me give my rationale on the C+. Look, you had some really ups. You had Amari Cooper, who had one of his better years since he's been in the league. And you did that with a backup quarterback. I also like the fact that Jacoby Brissett is going to make himself some money on the open market a little bit as well. The reason I had to knock you down to a C+ and it could have been upwards of a B is I just don't know how I feel about Jacoby Brissett looking better than Deshaun Watson. I didn't see some of the same. I didn't see some of the same type leaps and bounds. And granted, he was out for a long period of time. But my thing was, I was imagining that offense as I was looking at other teams playing this weekend or playing it later on in the season. And there seems to be a big difference in the way they scheme it up.
Let me ask you this: what grade would you give Brissett, and what grade would you give Watson? Then?
I give Brissett all the way up to a B. He has all the way up to a B.
So then that brings Watson. Watson's like a D.
Yeah, the Watson game plan was almost a D. It could have been D- at some point. I mean, the Texans game was ugly. There was a couple weather games in there, but then at the end of the year, they really could have ended on a high note. But they played one of the worst games against the Steelers, who had a backup rookie quarterback. I didn't see the preparation. I didn't see them moving to a point where it's like, oh, okay, I can see this moving. I can see this happening.
Yeah.
Offense was a little. Passing game was messed up for me. Now, the rushing attack, I would give it A-. Now, look, a lot of people, shout out to Adam the Bull. I know he's somewhere yelling. They ran the ball the most in the league, third most, right? Yes, we know. 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns. Anybody would take that type of production, right?
Absolutely.
You got almost 500 yards from your backup running backs. The Browns ran the ball. I would have liked to see them run it in a little more, I would say, situational football.
Hang on a minute. What did you say your grade was for rushing? I was looking at my phone.
A-.
After all the bitching and moaning you guys did all year long about how they weren't running the ball enough, you go and give them an A-?
Well, yep.
I think well, I'll let you explain it, but when they were asked to run the ball, they ran the ball great. I think the problem was situationally when you felt they should have been running more and they weren't.
I could have gave them an A+. Like, there's a lot of thirds in there, and I see, like, because you got to think about it. We talked about poaching the other day. The Browns at certain points in time, Jason, had one of the knockdown, drag-out best O-lines. Plus, the backs was moving. Plus, Nick Chubb was healthy for every game, it seems like. So my thing was that 1,500 could have easily been 1,700, 1,800. Yeah. Now, I will say this. They threw the ball a little more, and then out of retrospect, Jacoby Brissett allowed them to throw the ball a little bit more than they used to because he had such a nice year, and I like what he did. But for me, yeah, the game has always been an A. It's just nitpicking about how much more they could have got. Now, the worst part is this. That creativity is a D.
Why?
And the reason I give them creativity is because I just watched in the playoffs, Chris Jones. They moved him all over the place. They had him over the center. Yeah. They had him over the 3 technique. When they needed a rush to get the game over, guess what? He's over the tackle. I watched the Kansas City Chiefs be down to nobody. And they had to fix it. Sky Moore, you're going to be our number 1 receiver. Tight ends had to come in. You look at it like this. Even when Shanahan didn't have no quarterbacks, they at least still scored a couple touchdowns, right? They still got on the board. But you look at the way that these other teams are being creative. Miami, right? They get on the board. Jacksonville. I just didn't see the creativity level. Maybe that's due to the scheme. Maybe that's due to the coaching. But I think it's due to their roster a little bit. And consistency, I think I gave them an F because the Cleveland Browns, to be honest with you, at their peaks, can play with any of those teams, which is disappointing, Jason. At their peaks, like there's 5 to 10 minutes of a game where you put a Cleveland Browns tape on and they can play with any team in the league. But it's just the peaks and the valleys in their gameplay, the non-consistency. If they want to get to where they want to get, it has to get better. I gave them an F.
Pretty harsh. I thought I was harsh, but yours are tougher than all of mine. Jay, do you want to go?
Yeah, mine's going to look different than his. It's funny because you were killing him all year for not running the ball enough, and you gave him a better grade of than I did.
That's why you wanted to know what you gave him.
Well, no, because I'm like, wait a minute. You just rushed him all year. Go ahead. You got mine. Go ahead and pull it up. Okay. Wait a minute. Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's a different order than what it was on my phone. But rushing attack, I gave him a B+. This is kind of straightforward. I think they were 6th in the league in rushing yards. So if you want to cut it up, there's 32 teams in the league. The top 5 or 6 or so A's. The next group of 5 or 6 are B's, C's, D's. It's not the best way to do it, but it's at least a benchmark. So I gave him a B+ in rushing. I gave him a C- in passing. Almost was a D+, just because Deshaun dragged him down so much. Even as good as Jacoby was, we were raving all year about what a great year Jacoby had, and it was. But that's considering the standard that we had set for him. Overall, in terms of NFL, it's still not elite level quarterback play.
Can I sneak in and ask you a question? If Jacoby had stayed quarterback, do you think the Browns would have made the playoffs?
No.
You think would they have won a couple more?
They might have got one more.
But
What you said with Jacoby.
With
If Jacoby plays all year, they don't make the playoffs. No.
Well, I mean, Watson, they were 3-3 with Watson.
Right. Yeah.
They were under 500
with
for a
Jacoby.
bigger sample size.
Yeah.
They were 4-7.
Right.
With Jacoby. It was weird. I thought their offense looked way better with
Right.
Jacoby. But I think the schedule had something to do with
Absolutely.
that. They caught some real sleepers.
Yeah, they did.
In there.
And so, for as well as Jacoby played, we've pointed out, he had just crushing interceptions at the end of some of those losses. Obviously, Deshaun, the last 6 games, was not great, and that drags the game down. I was better than you were. I was more favorable on the consistency and on the creativity. Creativity, I give him a B, because we're talking about the creativity of the offense. Guys, there were dudes open all over the field. That wasn't the problem. And David Njoku, if he catches the ball in the end zone against the Saints, we're having a different conversation. The pass interference call on Amari in the Baltimore game, I thought was an awful call. The play was there to be made. He made the play. He caught the ball and gets called for a really bad, I thought, questionable push-off. So, I mean, the margin that we're talking about is this. So it's not a creativity issue, and I know I've mentioned this before. A lot of the guys on the offense love the offense because of the misdirection, because you don't know the motion, you think we're going here, we're actually going there, you think we're going there, we're actually coming back here. So I don't think creativity is the issue at all. I think you need better quarterback play. If you have better quarterback play, the consistency, the level's going to go up. And if you make some of the plays that are there to be made.
See, I gave him the consistency thing because of the defense. For me, not consistency, but the creativity for me was an F on defense. So,
Gee, you knew these were the offensive grades. Doing defensive grades tomorrow.
Oh, well, in that case, this changes a lot. These should be a lot higher than.
Hold on, G. Bush came up.
This should be a lot higher than.
Rosanna, Dana.
Yeah.
Came upstairs to the production offices for an hour yesterday.
Yeah.
I would not let him leave till he sent me his all-time Cavs lineups because we knew if he didn't send them yesterday.
These is down a little bit. Raise that up a little bit. I can't give him no D on that. Like, you got creativity. I give him a B- on that one. See how easy that changes?
We're doing defensive ones tomorrow, so save your defensive analysis for tomorrow.
And what I have for consistency, a C. I give him a C.
Yeah.
I think
a C.
C, yeah. So, I mean, it was frustrating at times. Listen, there's a couple play calls that I wanted to jump out of the press box on. You're going to have that, I think, with any team. You're going to have those plays, like the 4th down call at Atlanta, I hated. The Brissett throw into the end zone against Cincinnati, I hated. There's always going to be those calls throughout the course of the season that you're going to look at and go, oh, my God, what are they thinking? The play caller probably goes, oh, my God, what was I thinking after some of those? But overall, the offense is not the reason the Browns sat home and watched the playoffs this year, so I couldn't be terribly hard on them.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, if you're looking for the silver lining here, it was the offense. All of that being said, they just weren't nearly good enough to overcome a defense that was as big a disappointment for a unit on the Browns that I can remember.
Yeah.
In other words, we weren't talking about them coming into the season being upper half or upper third, which would be top 10.
Mm-hmm.
When we would say top 5, the players would correct us and say, oh, no. We're going to be number 1.
Yeah.
We want to be so that's the bar set by you guys. The bar was number 1. So that's the defense. We'll save that for tomorrow. Offense, passing game, straight C. And the reason it was a C was because it had a lot to do with what you said. I thought Brissett was better than the guy that we were paying $230 million to.
Yeah, I couldn't.
And I know Watson had a lot of rust, but I want to see that rust knocked off after 3 games. And I never saw it go away. In fact, the last game of the year against Pittsburgh, I thought maybe was one of his worst. I didn't see any progression whatsoever, which is what led me to make my statement at the end of the season. I'm getting really concerned that we'll never see that guy again. That, like some of these quarterbacks that have come and gone and flamed way too young, is that happening to our guy? I don't know. I think it's a fair question when we've seen 6 games. If it was 2 games after 2 years off, okay. We had 6 games. By week 3, I want to see no rust. I want to see the old player starting to emerge. Never saw that guy. That's why it gets a C. And I thought if it wasn't for Brissett, if Brissett played as we thought he would, the passing game's a D. But he played far better than we thought he would. Rushing attack B, why not an A? For exactly what you said. I thought situationally there was times when we should have been running the ball, and we weren't. We're a run-first team. Why is it that our offense is always passing the ball more than they're running the ball when everybody in this front office will tell, when you look at the roster construction, we're built to run. That's the way this team was built. Yet, it's like you buy a Ferrari and now you want to use it as a 4x4. You want to use it as a monster truck. You built the team. You built it to be a run team, and there were times when they could have milked games away by running the ball, and they weren't able to do that. So that's why it wasn't an A. Creativity, I gave them a C-. I disagree with you, Jace. I thought my bar for creativity offensively is Andy Reid. And I know that some of his gimmick plays didn't work, but the hook and ladder that they tried.
That was going to be crazy.
And here's the thing about that, guys. That's a playground play. You've run that. When you were 8 years old, you ran that on the playground. It's almost like, it's so absurd. It's like the Statue of Liberty. Right. Is that what he's going to pull out in the Super Bowl?
The ring around the Rosie against the Raiders in week 17 or 18.
Unbelievable. This is like mind-blowing stuff. So to me, if you're grading on a 100-point scale, Andy Reid and that offense is the 100. And I see moments where Kevin Stefanski is creative, but then you put Jacoby Brissett in on 4th and inches and you throw to the end zone.
That when you mentioned, I was talking to my dad after the game, and he said, he was like, it seems like the first half, they got so many plays where it's waves they come at you. Like the first half is gadgets. You don't know what they're running. It's everybody flying everywhere, and they scheme usually 3 to 4 people open. Now, if you can minimize some of those to field goals, you could be in the game.
Yes.
But usually, those are touchdowns, and you're done.
Yep.
Then the second half is your adjustments. Then they say, well, okay, we just going to isolate our best players, and then you're like, oh, God, they're really good. And then if you're still in the fourth quarter, they got guys who can make the plays and just go off schedule. So
which is why it works.
The creativity, it's like getting to the Boston Mario world. You gotta, you're gonna go through waves of little minions, and then you get to the boss, and you're like, man, they still got stuff in here.
And what's funny is I thought the same thing. When I was watching that, and where they pulled the hook and ladder out, I'm like, that wasn't a do or die play in that game.
It's first week.
And you know damn well that they know that at the end of that game, they're gonna have situations that are do or die. Instead of saving those gadgets for those moments, they use them early, and the reason they use them early is because now they've planted a seed. Now that you better not overcommit, you better not, leave a trailer. You better not leave a guy open on a.
Kelsey tried to do it again.
I know.
Kelsey tried it the second time.
And
he looked for it the second time.
What's so smart about that is it's almost like Andy Reid saying, "Here's something for you to think about later in the game that you might see again, but you may not. But you're going to have to defend against it. You're going to have to change what you do in your base defense."
Jason, do you think Stefanski does that more conventionally on just the runs and maybe some of the less splash things like, okay, we're going to run this play, we're going to run the ball, but then I have tight ends open. We have formations that you may not choose, you may think we're going to run. You think he does that, but just on a different level, is not as flashy as Andy Reid?
Oh, they do. Yeah, they have things that they run certain formations just to set up things later on. 100% that happens. And they've tried some of the gadget plays and they've been a disaster. Like Amari Cooper throwing the interception.
Which is why I'm a C- on them. Andy Reid's, they don't always work. The hook and ladder could have been a disaster, by the way.
Yeah.
I was surprised that Bengals didn't challenge that play, that it was even a catch. Because he didn't make a football move.
Yeah,
and the ball wasn't in his hands
quick.
but a tenth of a second.
Yeah.
It literally was catch and pitch.
Yeah.
And I would have challenged that was an incomplete pass because he never made a football move, and I don't know that he completed the process of completing the catch.
Well, I don't know what a catch is in the NFL
I don't
anymore,
either. I don't either.
yeah.
And the last one I wanted to mention, and this was the one I've got some stats on, consistency D-. You touched on my main point here. This team is good enough to play with anybody. Period. Full stop. And there is no debating that. And if you want evidence, just go to the October 31st Halloween game when they absolutely housed Cincinnati. I understand they were playing without their best receiver. We had our second-string quarterback. It was 32-13, I think was the final. Here's what I dug up. This was the first time they played their divisional rivals, and then the second time. Halloween night, they scored 32 against Cincinnati. Second time they played them, they scored 10. Checkmark Cincinnati on the adjustments. Pittsburgh, first time they played them, they scored 29. Second time they played them, 14. By the way, those were with Watson in game 2.
Jacoby in game 1.
Jacoby in game 1. Baltimore, 20 points in game 1, a 23-20 loss. 13 points in game 2, a 13-3 victory. Of course, Baltimore was playing with their dinged quarterback situation. What's stunning to me is, in each of those games, they went down 22 points, 15 points, and 7 points. Second time around.
But the entire offense took a step back with Deshaun.
Which is, I just can't understand it. I can't explain it. You know, it's like, a chemistry experiment goes bad when you put one piece into the puzzle that's superior to everybody. It was almost like the quandary we had with, well, why is Baker better when OBJ is on the field? This doesn't make sense. And we're in the same spot with the Kevin Stefanski offense. Why is this offense dramatically less productive with Deshaun Watson out there over Jacoby Brissett? I don't get that.
Remember Albert Breer, he was on there a couple days ago, and he said they want to get to this offseason where they want to do more things outside of structure. You know, in Clemson, Deshaun is one of those guys that he could do things outside of structure, and he's great with that. If you look at Odell Beckham Jr., what's the first thing people say? He's not going to run the exact same route every time. He's going to do some things outside of structure, but that's what gives you the big plays. We talked about, some guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones, guess what? He can get you to, turn around 5 yards, go downfield, catch the ball, get down. He can give you that, but can he give you that improv type game plan where he can move? Oh, I don't see it.
And Albert said that the Browns want to go more that way.
Yes.
I'd be for that.
That's absolutely true.
Could you imagine OBJ with a guy like Mahomes who finds guys when they're open? And I mean, just think about it. Baker clearly can't do that. Baker knows where all of his guys are supposed to be, and if you're not on that X, you're not getting the ball. And that was the problem with OBJ being the freelancer that he is. You've got to pair him with a quarterback who is A, mobile, so he can buy time, and B, goes through his progressions and finds the open guy. That's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if OBJ was to sign with Kansas City in this offseason.
I mean, Mahomes and Reed are so good. Even on the corner route, like Travis Kelce was just like, oh, you read the route for me? Cool. I'll just go ahead and sit down. And I will throw it short. Now, who knows? Now, Patrick Mahomes threw that, knowing good and well that was not the play.
No.
So what kind of trust?
But by the way, does anybody sell a route better than Kelce? He sold that route so well. I don't blame the corner for biting on it. I thought that was the route he was running, and maybe it was the route he was running. And at the last second, he said, "You know what? No, he bit so hard on that. I'm just going to lay down here and be open."
And the problem is, I've seen Deshaun Watson do all those things. I've seen him do all that, right? The question is, how do we get to a point where we can trust as fans that we're going to see that starting week 1 next year?
You have to go out and get the receiver capable of doing it because, to Albert's point, Deshaun, one of the things he's best at is freelancing. And, okay, this isn't there, but you have to have the receiver that sees that and reads that and breaks his route and heads for the end zone or just runs deep.
Is willing to break off a route and just get open.
And the Browns don't have that guy right now. DPJ is very structured in terms of this is where I'm supposed
to be.
And so
is Cooper, really.
And Cooper just doesn't have the burst anymore.
Right.
But with DPJ, it's like this is where I'm supposed to be, this is where I'm going to be, and he's not really good at adjusting on the fly. They have to go find that guy.
Yeah, I think that could be the missing element because I'm fine with taking him off schedule and letting him do his thing.
Right.
Because I agree. At Clemson, that's what separated him from everybody else. But we haven't seen that in his brief time here in Cleveland, and we definitely saw it in his time in Houston. I don't know who that receiver is, but I guess that would be their number one offensive priority is to find that guy.
Yeah, I really, no one's told me this. I really think their second-round pick's going to be a receiver.
I'm moving that same way with Jason. I think before it was because you see what is alarming in the middle when somebody's gashing you in the middle, and now you get Schwartz. They might have told Jim, "Look, we brought you in because we think you got to retrain a couple of these dudes. We think you got to.
We think that the clay is here. Now mold it.
Yeah, mold it, and then we'll give you one guy. We'll try really hard to give you a guy that you can hang your hat on. But for me, to me, the most important position for this team is a receiver because I'm looking around and there's no shot, there's no chance because I think one of the things that even hurt the Cincinnati Bengals was Tyler Boyd going out. Tyler Boyd, the first 2 or 3 plays of that game, they had no answer for Tyler Boyd in the slot. Then you had Higgins and then you still had Jamar Chase. See, sometimes, I know we're not used to it, but sometimes you got to have multiple guys to beat.
Guys that do different things.
Different things.
So you got your possession guy, you've got your hands guy, you've got your freelance route runner, you've got your, precision route runner. You should have one. It's like a golf bag. You got a club in your bag for every shot you're going to need. And I don't think the Browns have that in their wide receiver core. One thing, can we put those draftable guys back up? Smith and Jacobs not going to be available by the time they pick.
Well, those are just the Mike, you take 87, please. 87.
Unless I'm just way off on
I agree. I think he's a first-round guy.
Yeah, I do too. I'd be stunned if he's not a first. Even without playing last year.
These were, so I went to PFF.
Yeah.
And they had their breakdown of ranges of where they could be picked.
Where did they have Smith and Jigba?
Anywhere from 15 to 50.
If he slides to the Browns and they don't take him, I'm not a fan anymore.
All these guys.
I'm not kidding about
Adam the Bull, the soul of Adam the Bull is rising up.
Can you imagine? What would your reaction be if he slid to the Browns in the second round and they passed on Smith and Jigba?
There's no way he's sliding to the second.
That's wrong.